Welcome. I'm Tracy Smith, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. Sofía Vergara is perhaps best known for playing feisty wife Gloria for 11 seasons on Modern Family. That's why Vergara was determined to be unrecognizable for her gritty portrayal of Griselda Blanco, a brutal Colombian drug lord once known as the Black Widow in the Netflix drama Griselda. She sat down with Jonathan Vigliotti.
She was this Colombian woman in the 70s and the 80s that actually took over the drug dealing business, not only in Colombia, here in the United States too. I mean, for me, as a woman, I was fascinated, how did she become even more ruthless, more horrific than any man?
Later in the show, Sofía Vergara on growing up in Colombia amid a booming drug trade.
When you were younger, growing up in Barranquilla, did you ever fear cocaine and the trade and those involved in it?
Well, yeah, everybody's, of course, trying not to be part of it. But unfortunately, in those countries where there are a lot of people don't have opportunities, don't have anything else. That's what they have to do.
Then on to the Stanley Hotel, famous for being Stephen King's inspiration for The Shining, where they welcomed an unlikely guest, a frozen corpse, so infamous there's even a festival for him. Lee Cowan checks in.
His name was Bredo Moorstol. He died in Norway in 1989, but his remains ended up about an hour away from the Stanley, here in Nederland, Colorado.
Here I am.
Unceremoniously laid to rest in that tough shed. Frozen stiff.
So is that the casket?
That is the casket.
That's all coming up right here on Here Comes the Sun. Sofía Vergara tried to drop her trademark accent when she arrived in Los Angeles, but once she finally embraced it, her acting career started taking off. She talks to Jonathan Vigliotti about her life and career, from being discovered on a Colombian beach to becoming a Hollywood star.
You insult a woman's driving and you use the air bunnies. You do that to me and I kill you.
I want to show you that it's not important what other people think. What is important is that you stay true to yourself.
For 11 seasons, this is how we've come to know Sofía Vergara.
You two work this out or you kill each other.
As the feisty and hilarious Gloria Pritchett in the ABC sitcom Modern Family.
Jane, did you put the key in my bag?
No.
I won't be mad.
In order to prove a point, I may have...
I knew it!
3 years after the series ended,
Let's get to work.
Vergara is back with something completely different.
There's a lot of women who leave the man but not the life.
I swear.
I know what I'm doing.
All my focus was that people were not going to see Gloria Pritchett. That's what I wanted people not to see.
I think it was after 5 minutes watching you as Griselda, Gloria, Sofía disappeared.
So this offer is because you don't want to deal with us? Or is it because you don't think that we can do this?
In her new role, the 51-year-old is a chain-smoking, bat-swinging, gun-wielding killer. Griselda, the Netflix series, tells the real-life story of Griselda Blanco, a single mother of 4 and a notorious cartel leader.
She was this Colombian woman in the 70s and the 80s that actually took over the drug dealing business, not only in Colombia, here in the United States too. I mean, for me, as a woman, I was fascinated, how did she become even more ruthless, more horrific than any man?
Blanco was among the first drug lords to bring cocaine to the American masses. Called the Black Widow, it was rumored she ordered the deaths of hundreds of people.
When I thought of Griselda, I wanted her to be like Tony Soprano. I wanted her to be a character that people didn't hate.
Good.
Even though it was a bad guy.
How you doing?
For the character, Vergara changed the way she walked, talked, and even looked.
Prosthetics. You used one.
Yeah.
The nose.
The nose, the teeth were horrific. I had plastic from here to here because we needed to cover. My eyebrows are very thick and I wanted me to disappear, and I think that was one of my features that is very strong.
Making Griselda a reality began back in 2012 when she was connected with director Andy Baez and creator Eric Newman for their work on the Netflix hit Narcos.
Now, I want the honest truth from you. When you first heard that Sofía Vergara, best known for Modern Family at the time, was interested in playing a murderous leader of a cartel, what did you really think?
I was nervous.
Why were you nervous?
As a director, I was nervous because Sofía is a national treasure in Colombia. I'm from Colombia. And then suddenly she's taking this very brave stance, this big leap in her career to do something dramatic.
You know, Sofía is an empire builder. You know, Sofía has built herself into an industry. I believe that anything she truly sets her mind to doing, she will do.
The result is a gritty portrayal and cautionary tale of the true toll of narcotics, which hits close to home for Vergara.
Unfortunately, I grew up in Colombia during the 70s, 80s, and 90s where narcotraffic was booming. I know those people. I was surrounded by them. I know what they did. I know what that kind of business can do to a family, to a person, to a country.
An estimated 250,000 people were killed during Colombia's decades-long drug war. Among the casualties, Vergara's own brother, Rafael.
My brother was killed during that time. My brother was part of that business. I know what it feels like. I know what that world is.
Vergara grew up in Barranquilla, Colombia. Her father was a cattle rancher and her mother a homemaker. At 17, she was discovered on the beach and cast for this Pepsi commercial.
They wanted me to do it, but I was in a Catholic school, so I was very, very worried that the nuns were gonna get super upset because it was on a bathing suit on the beach.
That commercial was a launching pad to stardom, but for a time, Vergara thought success meant losing her accent.
I realized that when I moved to LA, I'm like, I'm gonna fix it. It didn't happen, no matter what. And then it was like not letting me get anything done when I would go to auditions, because all I was thinking about was my pronunciation and not about the acting. So the moment that I said, you know what, let's see if I get anything just being myself, and I did.
And she continues to do it as an actress, producer, entrepreneur, and judge on America's Got Talent.
When you arrived here in the United States, did you ever imagine you build this kind of career?
No. I'm very happy, very grateful, because it's been more than I thought it was going to be.
But with all of the success, there were challenges, including this past year, when she announced she and Joe Manganiello, her husband of 7 years, were divorcing.
And the world took notice when that happened.
Yeah.
Did you expect that?
Yeah, of course. You're like, you're out there and people know. That's part of being a celebrity. I knew it was going to happen. You can't hide those things.
How did you overcome that?
It wasn't bad. I think, I have to say the press was very respectful and very nice. And I thought that they were going to invent more things, how they usually is. And I was surprised. And no, they kind of like just said what it was, and that was it. And, I've been moving on.
Moving on and moving forward. Sofía Vergara in a whole new light.
It's been a wonderful life. But of course, you have to work. You have to work more than anyone if you have an accent like me. And, you have to prove yourself more. If you're a minority, you have to be more serious because you might not get that many opportunities. It hasn't been easy, but, it's been amazing.
Up next, an exclusive excerpt from Jonathan Vigliotti's chat with Sofía Vergara, something you can only see right here on Here Comes the Sun. Stay with us.
I'm just grateful that I can get anything.
As promised, here's more from Jonathan Vigliotti and Sofía Vergara.
It's one thing to want to play a role It's another thing to convince a whole team of people to cast you in it, to be part of that. How did you, at the time, Gloria from Modern Family, convince anybody that you could be capable of murder?
I don't know how I did. I mean, I think because I was so determined and prepared, I did so much research about Griselda, and for many, many years, then I stopped. I stopped for a minute because then I realized, you know what, she's alive. She had been released from jail, so she was alive, living in Medellin. So I'm like, you know what, I can't do this when this woman is out and about. I don't know if she's happy living her life after all the, horrific things that she did. So for a long time, I just said, no, this is not what I want to do. But then she was killed. And in a very bad way, in a way that she created that kind of killing. And so I said, well, maybe now I can, try to start this over, and I did.
When you were younger, growing up in Barranquilla, did you ever fear cocaine and the trade and those involved in it?
Well, yeah, everybody's, of course, trying not to be part of it. But unfortunately, in those countries where there are a lot of people don't have opportunities, don't have anything else. That's what they have to do. They do whatever they do to survive, unfortunately. I'm not generalizing at all, because there were a million people that didn't get involved in that. But it was hard. It was hard because, if you were an architect and you build the most amazing building, who were you selling it to? It was the people that had money to buy it. It was the narcos. So no matter what you did, there was, at that time, everybody had to get touched by it, unfortunately.
It was pervasive.
Yeah.
Given Griselda and the part that you have played, it appears that you love to play every kind of role that's out there. As you were playing Gloria, were you worried or haunted by the idea that you would never be able to shake off that part and get other parts?
No, I'm never thinking about that, because I'm just grateful that I can get anything. It's not like I would have done Gloria Pritchett for the rest of my life. I don't care. I have to be grateful. I never really went to acting school. I started, acting very, very late into my 30s. So, I'm just grateful that they actually think that I can do it.
Up next, Frozen in Time. Welcome back. The Stanley Hotel, inspiration for Stephen King's The Shining, has a reputation as a very haunted house. But it's the hotel's newest dead resident, still in the flesh, who has people talking now. Lee Cowan explains.
Those majestic elk aren't the only unusual guests to wind up at the historic Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. In its nearly 115 years, it's hosted everyone from Theodore Roosevelt to the Titanic's unsinkable Molly Brown, and more recently, author Stephen King. If these long, narrow hallways look creepily familiar, it may be because the Stanley is where King was inspired to write The Shining.
Hello, Danny.
A hotel haunting that director Stanley Kubrick turned into a horror classic.
Here's Johnny!
But the Stanley was also haunted by something else. Decades of financial woes. It was in bankruptcy when hotel entrepreneur John Cullen found himself the latest in a long line of supposedly cursed proprietors to invest in this creepy place.
I don't know if I'd need to celebrate or cry, but here's Johnny.
He knew he had to capitalize on the hotel's ghoulish reputation.
You've got a big surprise coming to you.
So he fixed up Stephen King's actual room. You can now stay in it. And he built a hedge maze right out front. Just like the one where Jack Nicholson finally met his frozen end. And in keeping with that frozen theme, Cullen got another idea. In 2022, he asked the mayor of Estes Park for permission to allow one very special guest to check in, a man who'd been frozen himself for 30-plus years.
And she goes, Cullen, you know, I've seen a lot of weird out of you in the last 25 years, but this reaches a new level of weird.
His name was Bredo Morstol. He died in Norway in 1989, but his remains ended up about an hour away from the Stanley, here in Nederland, Colorado.
Here I am.
Unceremoniously laid to rest in that tough shed, frozen stiff.
So is that the casket?
That is the casket.
Every 2 weeks since the early 90s, people like Brad Wickham have been rotating in and out, hauling more than 1,000 pounds of dry ice up this mountain.
I can't believe you do this all by yourself.
All to keep Grandpa tucked in for his eternal winter's nap.
From what I understand, he was a very kind gentleman, and you could just tell that he was the glue of the whole family.
And still is, in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a practice called cryonics. Bredo's grandson, Trygve Baug, lived in this house, and he believed that by keeping his grandfather frozen in the backyard, doctors of the future might one day be able to clone or even revive him.
At the worst case, this is essentially a form of burial, but it's also for research.
James Airwood is co-CEO and president of the nonprofit Alcor Life Extension Foundation in Scottsdale, Arizona, where hundreds of patients, as they call them, are patiently waiting, frozen in liquid nitrogen, not a box filled with dry ice in a tough shed.
When you heard this story, were you like, this is just wild, right?
I just thought it was weird.
It is bizarre.
Grandpa's grandson was forced to move back to Norway. He was deported for overstaying his visa, and he had to leave Grandpa behind.
Oh, boy.
But Grandpa hasn't exactly been alone either.
Here's to you, Bredo.
Our own Bill Geist went to pay his respects back in 2003.
All right, here we go.
He learned Grandpa wasn't forgotten. He was actually being celebrated with an annual Frozen Dead Guy festival.
Why, if it weren't so creepy, it'd be almost heartwarming.
It's almost like a frozen Burning Man, if that actually can be in one sentence.
It eventually became so popular, Nederland couldn't handle the crowds anymore. But its gallows humor fit the Stanley perfectly. So Cullen moved it here.
A little humor, a little fun, little beer, a little bit of attitude, but all in good spirit.
But what's a Frozen Dead Guy festival without the Frozen Dead Guy? Cullen needed the festival's namesake, and let's face it, Grandpa needed an upgrade. So, this past August,
1, 2, up.
With his grandson's permission,
Into the body bag.
Grandpa Bredo was moved by a team from the Alcor Life Extension Foundation. He was driven to the Stanley's old ice house, removed from his aluminum casket, put in a sleeping bag, and then submerged head first in liquid nitrogen.
What does he look like?
Damn good.
Yeah?
He looked better than embalmed people.
He's now the centerpiece of a small exhibit on the science of cryonics here at the Stanley. And he gets visitors every day.
Hi, John.
As for John Cullen, well, he's now sold the Stanley, but he's proud of its ghostly legacy. After all, he linked a fictional Frozen Dead guy to a real one. And he managed to find the perfect hotel guest. One who never complains and will never check out.
Ice, cooler, movie, Frozen Dead Guy. Come on!
I'm Tracy Smith. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you here next time on Here Comes the Sun.